In your book, Fat Chance, on page 120, there was something particularly curious because I think this is here we go. It says, the bottom line is sugar consumption is a problem. 33% of sugar consumption comes from beverages.
Yes.
And the biggest abusers are the poor and underserved.
Indeed.
So let's talk about beverages to start with then.
Mm-hmm.
Diet beverages. Are they fine? And how bad are the sort of fizzy pop beverages that most of us consume every day?
So let's do the sugared soft drinks first.
Okay.
They are really bad. If you consume one sugared beverage per day, your risk for diabetes goes up by 29%.
Wow.
Okay? That's
and diabetes.
And that's if you have one. If you have two, 58%.
And diabetes is now the main cause of death in 40% of death certificates.
Exactly right. So this is a big problem. So, that's demonstrating its toxicity at, shall we say, medium dose. At low dose, you can handle it. But, as soon as you go above that dose, it's a problem. And we have the data for it. Okay? And all of these are factored in. These are all econometric analyses. We've shown that sugar is a proximate cause of diabetes. Whenever sugar availability changes in any country, diabetes prevalence changes 3 years later. And we've also done what's known as advanced Markov modeling, where we go into the future and show that when sugar consumption goes down in any country, diabetes levels change and reduce 3 years later. So it's a 3-year window between the change in the diet and the change in the metabolic health consequences. We have those data. And the fact that they work both on the way up and on the way down is like, take it to the bank. Mm-hmm. Now, that's for the sugared beverages. You asked me about diet beverages.
I've got one here.
Let's look at it. All right.
I've covered up the logos because I don't want to call anyone.
I've never seen this before. I wonder what that is. The data now show, it took a while for these data to come in, but the data now show that the toxicity of one sugared soda equals the toxicity of 2 diet sodas. Half as bad. Now,
okay.
Half as bad does not mean good. Half as bad means half as bad.
Well, it says 0 sugar here, so how can it be bad?
Because it's bad for a different reason. So, 0 fructose, 0 calories. I agree. But that doesn't make it good. Makes it better than the sugared alternative, but it doesn't make it good. Why? Number one, you put something sweet on the tongue. Message goes tongue to brain, sugar's coming. Message goes brain to pancreas, sugar's coming, release the insulin.
So I still get an insulin release?
You still get an insulin response. And the more other food you ate, the bigger the insulin response.
Okay.
So you will have an accentuated insulin response because you were exposed to the diet sweetener. This is work from Yanina Pepino, 2013 at WashU St. Louis. And it's been corroborated multiple times since.
And why does that harm me, having an insulin response?
Because insulin's a bad guy. So we always talk about glucose being a bad guy in terms of diabetes, and it is, of course. But insulin's a bad guy too. Glucose causes small vessels to be dysfunctional. It causes endothelial cell dysfunction. It causes high blood pressure because it causes those small vessels to constrict. It interferes with nitric oxide, which is one of the things that relaxes the blood vessel. And it will, basically reduce blood flow to specific organs. So high glucose is not good for you, and it's bad for small vessel disease. And that's why diabetics get retinopathy, nephropathy, neuropathy, kidney disease, nerve damage, and eye disease. But insulin is also a problem because what insulin does is it causes cell growth. Insulin is a growth factor, and it causes vascular smooth muscle growth like in your coronary arteries, and it causes glandular growth. So it is one of the primary drivers of heart disease and cancer. So You can be a diabetic, a type 2 diabetic, and have your hemoglobin A1C, a measure of your glucose control, down near normal range because you're on insulin or oral hypoglycemics or even GLP-1 analogs for that matter, okay? And you will die just the same because you will die of a heart attack or of a cancer, because diabetics have a much higher incidence of cancer. They also have a higher incidence of dementia as well. And the reason is because of insulin, because insulin's a bad guy in this story. Glucose causes microvascular disease. The insulin causes macrovascular disease. They're both bad. You need to control both of them. And this controls the glucose. It doesn't control the insulin.
Do you drink that stuff?
Of course not.
Just checking. Is there any other physiological consequences to diet sodas outside of the insulin response?
Indeed. So the other thing that we've learned about non-nutritive sweeteners across the board is that they alter the microbiome. Now, the microbiome is the bacteria that live in your gut. Now, you have to feed your microbiome. You have to feed your bacteria. Because if you don't feed your bacteria will feed on you. It will strip the mucin layer, a protective physical barrier, right off the surface of your intestinal epithelial cells. And when it does that, it denudes them and allows for other bacteria, toxic bacteria, to take up residence and cause irritable bowel syndrome, inflammatory bowel disease, and the junctions between the cells become dysfunctional as well. And so cells become permeable. And so stuff, in your intestine, the junk in your intestine, the, SH, can actually make it through into the bloodstream. You can measure the endotoxins and the whole bacteria, the lipopolysaccharides in the bloodstream when the intestine is damaged, even from diet soda. And what that does is that ultimately leads to systemic inflammation. And that systemic inflammation also leads to metabolic disease, mental health problems, cognitive decline, early death.
Is there a relationship between sugar and our hormone levels?
Of course. Well, the main one, of course, is diabetes. Insulin. But high sugar, if you have high sugar consumption, it's going to cause changes in insulin response at the level of the liver. It's going to cause fatty liver disease. Okay, it can change your kidneys' function, which can ultimately increase blood pressure. So it's got multiple potential detrimental effects.
What impact does sugar have on our liver? What's going on there?
So, as I mentioned, we have an innate capacity to metabolize a limited amount.
Yeah.
Everyone says, oh, sugar's energy. Well, yeah, but not really. Not really. So let's dissect that. The food industry says glucose is 4 calories per gram. The food industry says fructose is 4 calories per gram. Therefore, they're equal because they're 4 calories per gram. And if calories were the issue, then they would be right. But calories are not the issue. Okay? The whole issue of calories has to go down the tubes. Okay, as far as I'm concerned, that's the problem, and I am here to #kill the calorie as a unit of measure. It has no place in our in our dialogue. It has no place in medicine. Calories suck. Now, why do I say that? If you take a mole of glucose and you throw it into a bomb calorimeter, you will get 4 calories per gram. That's true. If you take fructose and you throw it in a bomb calorimeter, you will get 4 calories per gram. That's true. We are not bomb calorimeters. Okay?
What's a bomb calorimeter?
It's a contraption that explodes whatever you put in it and measures the heat that's given off from it.
So it measures the amount of calories in something, effectively, using some
because that's what calories are, is the amount of heat required to raise 1 gram of water 1 degree centigrade.
Okay.
So it's a measure of heat, is what it is. That's what calories are. Now, we do our burning in these little organelles inside each of our cells called mitochondria. This is all about mitochondria. And when your mitochondria work efficiently and well, you can burn energy to completion, and you can capture that energy in the form of chemical energy in your cell called ATP, adenosine triphosphate, and that's what your cell uses to power all of the functions that the cell needs. The little molecular motors and making stuff and, and also cleaning house, and recycling junk, okay, in order to keep your cells thriving and alive, okay? So mitochondria are essential. Now, glucose stimulates mitochondria to work better. Glucose is actually good. It stimulates two enzymes necessary for mitochondria to work. It stimulates an enzyme called AMP kinase, which is the enzyme that actually makes more mitochondria. And it's the fuel gauge on the liver cell, so it tells the liver, make more. And it also stimulates an enzyme called HADH, hydroxyacyl-CoA dehydrogenase, which is necessary to cleave two carbon fragments and burn them, oxidize them for energy too. So glucose we can call good because it helps mitochondria. Fructose, on the other hand, this sweet molecule in sugar, in sucrose, it inhibits three enzymes in mitochondria. It inhibits that AMP kinase. It inhibits an enzyme called ACADL, acyl-CoA dehydrogenase long chain. It inhibits CPT1, carnitine palmitoyl transferase 1. That's the enzyme that regenerates carnitine, which is the shuttle by which fatty acids can get into the mitochondria to be burned. So the net effect of fructose is to inhibit mitochondrial function. So, does fructose constitute energy if fructose is actually keeping you from making chemical energy in your cell? This is the conundrum. What do you mean by energy? If we're talking heat, then fructose is energy. If you're talking ATP, fructose inhibits ATP. And that's what we're talking about, because that's what leads to systemic health problems, not the heat. So all of these people, as far as I'm concerned, anyone who ever uses the word calorie, fire them. Because they don't get it. They are part of the problem, not part of the solution.
Many people will say that sort of counting calories has helped them with their weight loss goals.
You tell me. Virtually everybody who counts calories loses a little bit of weight, and then they plateau, and then they get tired of their diet, and the weight comes rushing back. Okay, 90% of people who try to diet through caloric restriction regain and sometimes yo-yo back even higher. So I don't accept that.
Are there studies that support this idea that sort of the yo-yo dieting is a byproduct of calorific restriction?
Not because of caloric restriction. It's a problem of insulin resistance. It's a problem of when you gain the weight back, did you gain it in the liver as liver fat? Because now you've got higher insulin, and insulin blocks this hormone that goes to the brain called leptin that is in charge of that set point. So the higher your insulin goes, the less well your brain can see leptin. And so the less well you can regulate. And so that's what drives your weight up even higher. So you don't regain the weight by eating, fish and vegetables. You regain the weight because you went for the bread and the rice and the pasta and the potatoes and the sugar.
What's a better plan then? If I'm trying to cut a couple of pounds, what's a better approach to take versus sort of calorie counting or these kind of things?
Get the insulin down. There is no weight gain without insulin. Insulin is the energy storage hormone. 20 years ago, from doing the research on kids with hypothalamic tumors who released enormous amounts of insulin, we gave them a drug that suppressed insulin release. They lost weight and they started exercising spontaneously because we got their insulin down. We showed that the lower we got the insulin, The more weight they lost and the better they felt. Insulin is the bad guy in this story. So numerous investigators, the world over, have now demonstrated that insulin is a primary driver of both obesity and diabetes and metabolic syndrome. You got to get the insulin down. Okay, how do you get insulin down? Best way, don't let it go up. What makes it go up? Refined carbohydrate and sugar, all the stuff you have over there in that corner.
Just to be clear, he's not pointing at my lunch.
No.
We have a pile of different sugar products that we brought for the interview over in the corner, including various things that you find on a shelf, everything from apple juice to some popular snacks to some other things.
Don't forget the peanut butter cups.
The peanut butter cups, yeah. And even this is just sort of sugar. It looks like water, but it's flavored water where they've added sugar to it.
Right.
So yeah, all of that stuff over there.
All of that stuff. So get the insulin down, all right? So cut the refined carbohydrate, cut the sugar, the dietary sugar. That is the single best way to mitigate this process by improving insulin resistance, by getting the insulin down. And we have done this time and time again. Basically, I turned my obesity clinic into an insulin reduction clinic for this reason.
A lot of people at sort of a prefrontal cortex logical level understand this. They understand that they shouldn't be having sugar. But
they think it's about calories.
They do. Some people do think it's about calories for sure. But even the ones that know that sugar is not something they should be having still struggle.
They do.
It's easier said than done.
Because sugar is addictive.
Right, yeah.
They struggle because sugar is addictive. We know because fructose stimulates that nucleus accumbens.
Yeah.
By the way, glucose does not.
When we get stressed, which is a facet of daily life now,
that's right,
we're much more likely to grab a sugary snack.
Indeed. And there's a reason for that too, because when you're stressed, that actually puts a greater burden on your amygdala, and your amygdala requires more energy. Hippocampus too, by the way.
The amygdala is the emotional center of the brain.
The fear center of the brain. Okay, and so you're trying to calm it. And so you have to increase the energy available because you need more ATP. And even though fructose inhibits ATP generation, you still reach for that because you're trying to mitigate the metabolic consequences acutely.
When I'm tired, I think I have a high propensity to grabbing sugar as well.
Indeed.
Why is that?
Because you're tired, you're stressed, and your amygdala is dysfunctional. And so it basically tells you, hell with it.
I don't have any sugar cravings in the morning. I've come to learn. I don't feel the need for sugar in the morning. It's sometimes when we get later into the evening,
right, after
a long day.
Exactly.
It's when my cravings.
You and everyone else, and me too, by the way. It's not like I'm immune to this. I am on record. I gained a lot of weight while I was a faculty member at UCSF, and every day at 4 p.m. I just ran out of gas. And so I ran across the street to get a large chocolate chip cookie. Okay, and that was without question the primary driver of my weight gain. Okay, it wasn't until I actually started doing the research on this and seeing that the kids felt better when we took the sugar out of their diet that I actually put 2 and 2 together for myself. So now I don't do that, and my energy level stays constant throughout the day.
So what advice do we give that is simple and actionable for Jennifer or Judith or Dave, who's listening to this now? They are, 40 years old potentially. They have a 9-to-5 job. They're very busy. Maybe they have some kids to feed at the same time. They don't have time to be looking at doing a fine sort of tooth comb over every single thing that they're putting into their body. They're not a scientist.
Agreed. It's a problem because the food industry has made the grocery store a minefield, and it's really easy to set off an explosion. If you walk in, you've basically lost. That's how bad it is. Understood. So the simple rule is eat real food. So what's real food? Well, food that came out of the ground or animals that ate food that came out of the ground. The problem is we all lead busy lives and we're looking for labor-saving devices because people don't even have time to cook. Most people, 33% of Americans don't even know how to cook anymore. So, like, what are they going to do? So we understand this. I mean, it's a problem. Agreed. We need food that is metabolically healthy for us, not metabolically detrimental. And the problem is that as soon as you put the added sugar in the food, you have made it metabolically detrimental. Now, the food industry will say, well, there are all these other good things in there, like vitamins and minerals. We fortify it, et cetera. So I'm here to tell you, toxin A plus antidote B still equals death. Okay? Just because they put some vitamins in there, or you take a dietary supplement, if it's not solving your mitochondrial dysfunction, what's the point? So you can't believe what the food industry is telling you. Okay? If they say something is healthy, it's usually the opposite. Whatever it says on the package, believe the opposite, because they have an incentive to put wrong stuff on the package. And I'll be honest with you, I'm part of numerous lawsuits suing the food industry for deceptive advertising, misbranding, mislabeling. 70% of all of the items in the American grocery store are misbranded or mislabeled.
If you love the Diary of a CEO brand and you watch this channel, please do me a huge favor. Become part of the 15% of the viewers on this channel that have hit the subscribe button. It helps us tremendously, and the bigger the channel gets, the bigger the guests.